morning, America, and welcome to CRAP News, where crap gets real. Today we'll be discussing the 70s and the important moments of it. For starters, there has been the...
Breaking news coming in from Saigon. The microphone's not working. Going to you, Jeff. Thanks. So, as you can see, we are here in the U.S. Embassy in Saigon, bunker M2500. Behind these thick glass doors, there's constant warfare between the Viet Cong Army in the north and the South Vietnamese Army. Thousands of families have been displaced due to the warfare, and here within the bunker, hundreds of families are waiting for evacuation. Wait, I just heard that evac arrived. I gotta get to the DZ. Back to you, Washington. Thanks, Jeff. Hope you get home safely. Now, this planned attack by the Viet Cong of the North against U.S. Embassy in Saigon, now known as the Tet Offensive, has vastly changed the public American opinion about the war. Now, the majority of Americans are against the war, causing President Johnson's popularity to plummet. Media has begun openly criticizing the war, including the famed Walter Cronkite, who said that the war is now unwinnable. Due to this, on March 31st of 1968, Johnson announced that the U.S. would seek negotiations to end the war, and in the summer of 1969, the newly elected President Nixon announced the withdrawal of the first U.S. troops from Vietnam. This process is known as Vietnamization, termed by Kissinger, which refers to the gradual withdrawal of U.S. troops in order for the South Vietnamese army to be able to defend themselves against the North Vietnamese army, or rather the Viet Cong. Now, there has been some scandal with the Vietnam War, including the release of the Pentagon Papers in June of 1971, which stated that the government, even as Johnson promised not to send American troops to Vietnam at the onset of the war, he was still planning to enter the war.
Excuse me. We're just getting something in from the White House now. Over to you, Robert.
Thanks, Joe. As you can tell, I'm out here at the White House, where President Reagan was recently just sworn into office. And we're also getting reports that the Iran hostages are being put on a plane to come back to the United States. This hostage crisis started on November 4th, 1979, where 52 hostages were captured by the Iranian students because of the entrance of the Shah during Carter's administration. There were a few rescue attempts made, but none of them worked, with around 8 casualties. But that's all that we have right now about the hostage crisis. Now back to the Nixon administration during the Cold War.
Thanks, George. Now, Nixon's administration was marked with many trials and tribulations, but many successes as well. Towards the beginning of his administration, Nixon and Kissinger were able to successfully withdraw America from the Vietnam War, thank God. However, there were many economic failures, especially due to the U.S. sending military aid to Israel during the Yom Kippur War, causing the OPEC nations to stop selling oil to the U.S. When they eventually did start selling oil again, ending the embargo, the oil prices had quadrupled. These factors led to a state of economy known as stagflation, which Nixon tried to battle with price and wage controls, but unfortunately the recession still continued. On the political side, realpolitik was a new philosophy that believed that foreign policy should be based solely on consideration of power, not on ideals or morals. Therefore, détente was the name of Nixon and Kissinger's plan at ending Cold War tensions, especially with the United Soviet Socialist Republics or the Soviet Union and China, because they were so powerful without the consideration that they were communist nations. Because of this, Nixon traveled to mainland China in February of 1972, and 3 months later went to Moscow, the first president ever to visit the Soviet capital. There, Nixon and Brezhnev signed the SALT I treaty, limiting the number of ICBMs and submarine-launched missiles. But unfortunately, Nixon's term was rattled with the Watergate scandal of '72, which I actually had today a special guest with me, the reporter Bob Woodard, who was one of the 2 leading investigators in the Watergate scandal. Bob Woodard?
Thank you for having me on here tonight. I'm just glad that I could be here and bring this to the public's attention. So, the Watergate scandal. This all started back in June of '72. And you see, there were some men that were arrested for stealing files in the Watergate building, which was being used as the Democratic National Committee. Now, you see, they were stealing these files for reasons unknown, and they were caught while attempting to place in a wiretap, actually replacing a wiretap that had previously been less than successful. So, what happened was my friend and we had decided that we were going to investigate a little more into this. And we discovered that the Nixon administration had actually been helping cover up this burglary. So bringing this to the public's eye, we also discovered that he had attempted to get the CIA, to interfere with the FBI's investigation of this. After a long time, many of the burglars actually came out and told of Nixon and how he was a very large part of this scandal. On August 8th, Nixon resigned after turning over the tapes that he had in his office discussing the Watergate issue. So, because of this, the presidents later on were not as trusted by the public eye. And this became a problem, and still is a problem, throughout history.
Welcome back. Although the 70s may have seemed like such a problem-ridden era, it really wasn't. In the fashion industry, it was really most like the 60s, just more flamboyant. It was more all about being hip and urban. Men and women would wear tight pants and platform shoes. It took the elements of the 60s and they perfected them. Robes and tunics were worn in the day, and people often could not tell if it was their nighttime or daytime wear. And surprisingly, chest hair was in, for some reason. Who knows?
That's something that I've never really been into myself.
Yeah.
But
Now to
meanwhile, in entertainment, the Beatles broke up at the very beginning of the 70s. So bands such as ABBA and the Bee Gees, with the songs like Dancing Queen and Staying Alive, became very popular in this time period. Disco and hip-hop also grew into existence, although hip-hop didn't completely gain recognition and mainstream-ness until the 90s. Movies such as The Godfather, The Godfather 2, and Star Wars remain iconic, and they began in the 70s. And TV channels such as ESPN and HBO are also originated from this time. MASH, Fiddler on the Roof, and other legends like Clockwork Orange originated here, and arcade machines and cell phones had their debut during the 70s as well. That is all we have for today. Thanks for tuning in to CRAP. Keep this crap real. You have a good day, folks.